And we're going to talk a little bit about, we're going to shift away from electricity and talk a little bit more about heating. So the other energies, for your house, electricity, heating, these are big energy users. So just to first give credit, Evergreen Energy, which runs District Energy St. Paul. So some of you may or may not know this, but in St. Paul, they have a district heating system for the buildings downtown. So they make most of their heat in this big plant, and they send it out in a distribution network to all of the several of the buildings downtown. And so Evergreen Energy runs District Energy St. Paul, and they helped us with this study, and so I give them credit because some of these slides are theirs. So this slide is complicated, but it talks about a couple different things that we're going to discuss here in the next few slides. But you have district energy systems through time. So if you look at the bottom, there's like the first generation system, which was late 1800s, early 1900s. And then you have the second generation, which is the 1930 to 1980. So a lot of systems for district energy were developed during that time. So we're going to talk about the Morris campus. Our energy system was developed in that second generation. So it's all steam, or mostly steam, and it used fossil fuels. So looking forward and thinking about what happens in the next two rounds. So if you also think about this kind of like cell phones, like 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G, we're on 5, whatever. So what happens in the future is thinking differently about what energy comes around. So what District Energy St. Paul is working on and what we've looked at is if you could pass hot water around, you can take energy from hot water. So think about geothermal systems that people have. You can take energy from water in the ground. You could take energy from warm water that goes around versus steam, which it takes a lot of energy to make steam. So, and also thinking about kind of analogous to what you do with electricity is, what if you were somebody who made extra heat? Could you put it into the system or could you take it out? And if you think about it, if you look around our community, there are businesses that make heat. So we have an ethanol plant that makes a lot of heat. Could that go into the system? Could there be other things that could go into the system? Some of you know, but we have a partnership with the city of Zurich Germany, and they have a really neat district heating system. So you can see those blue and red pipes. So blue being hot, red being hot, blue being cold. They have a district heating system, and you can see there's a group of students, Sydney and Austin, and then Troy Goodnow, our sustainability director up in the front corner. That is their district heating plant. They have a boiler that uses wood pellets, and they basically heat all their buildings downtown from one central heating system. And this is the main street of their town, and the pipes go from one end of the town to the other, and it all comes from one central heating system. So as I mentioned, the Morris campus is a district heating system. Some of you know this who've been on campus, some of you don't. We have a heating plant that has 4 boilers that can make steam. We send the steam out in tunnels and pipes that go out to the different buildings. Some of our buildings still use steam. So if you're a student or a faculty staff, the buildings where the pipes bang sometimes, that's a steam building. The ones that are on hot water, they have at the edge of the building a converter that takes the steam, makes hot water, and the hot water circulates within the building. So we already have this on campus, okay? And we send hot water out, but then we also send cold water out. So in the summertime, Bill Eiler makes cold water and he sends it around campus. And then at those buildings, we take the cold water and transition it into the building. So the water doesn't go into the building, we transition it to the building and we chill, so we use it for air conditioning, okay? And there's a network of pipes that go all over campus with chilled water. So we've thought about our campus and are thinking about our campus. And so what does it look like in the future? So think about that 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G. We're like halfway between 2 and 3G, so we get a couple bars, but we're not going to get that many. So we're going to look at ways to think about how do we circulate hot water around, because you can lower the temperature, it doesn't take as much energy, and you could look at other sources. So could we use electricity to heat water? Yes, you do that at home when you make a cup of coffee or tea or something. Could we use evacuated tubes, which the West Central Research and Outreach Center does in their building? So you could do something like that. So those are things that we're thinking about as we think about the next generation of our network. But what's holding us back, and what we'll need to do is, we have some buildings that are still on steam. So you have to convert those to be able to do that. So we actually have a team of people who are thinking about and looking at the economics of that. So as we were talking about this summer, and we noticed that the elementary school and the high school were looking at upgrading their infrastructure. A few of us went and had a discussion with the hospital and the school system and said, would there be any possibility for us to do a district heating system? I don't know, it's a good question. So we proposed a grant to the Southwest Sustainable Development Partnerships. The university, the hospital, and the school district came together and we did a feasibility study. So this is what we learned. These were our goals. So you can see our goal, number one goal is we want to develop a long-term, and it has to be cost competitive. It can't cost more money for this to work. It's got to be efficient. We want to use sustainable energy solutions. So thinking about ways that we can use things that are more natural. Improve energy resilience and sustainability of using local resources. So in our plant, at the heating plant, we have a biomass gasification plant. So we can take corn cobs and gasify them. So stuff that there are a few corn cobs around us in Morris here. We want to reduce fossil fuel usage and emissions. We want to avoid capital expenses. So the school district was thinking about their boilers and what they needed to do. So what could we do to reduce some of their capital investment? Lower maintenance costs. High school, the hospital have boilers, but you don't really need somebody to watch it full time, but you need somebody who's trained to be able to manage it. And so there's a lot of maintenance costs that go into maintaining all the little boilers. On our campus, we have 4 big boilers, and we always have to have somebody maintaining them because of the size. And then we were thinking about how do we get to UMM's goal of being carbon neutral by 2020. So what we needed to do was first figure out, so how much heat do we need, okay? Because it's really easy to think, okay, so think about that day when it's the coldest day. We don't want to be, we don't want to freeze to death, right? So on the worst case scenario, worst day, it's 30 below out and the wind's blowing and it's, everybody can think of the worst scenario, right? This is how much we demand. On the worst case, absolute worst day, we would demand 43 million BTUs. So don't worry too much about the units because that's like engineering stuff, but we would need 43, right? The high school and elementary school combined, and it's nice because that math is easy, it's 5.5. And the hospital needs 6.8, okay? So the total unit, the total system needs 55. And this is the worst case scenario. So not like a day like today, like really cool, okay? Okay, so how much stuff do we make? What's out there? So Sydney Bauer, Troy, Bill spent a lot of time looking at the boilers, analyzing it, figuring out how much. Our campus, the UM campus alone, has the capacity to make 93, right? So the absolute worst case scenario for all those buildings is 55. We could make 93 on our campus if it was the worst case scenario, worst day. And as we know, unfortunately, we don't have worst case scenario days as much as we used to. We have long shoulder seasons now. So when it's the middle of November and it's like 50 degrees during the day and 30 at night, that's really hard to manage. As you know, in your own homes, it's like it warms up and then it's cold at night, so it's a lot up and down. Here are the capacities. The high school had a capacity of 10, elementary school has a capacity of 20, and Stevens Community Medical Center has a capacity of 12. Okay, so again, on a worst case scenario day, the whole capacity of the whole system is 135. But on a worst case scenario day, it's 55. Okay, so if you thought about it, there's a lot of overcapacity there. You have to have some redundancy because in case something breaks, you want to make sure you can have redundancy. one of the things, and if some of you have read in the newspaper, the school district decided not to replace those high school boilers as they were working on this, because remember, their 5.5 is their worst day. They have enough capacity, and so it's going to take some thinking about how the piping works and different things. And because they're doing that project, that's what they're going to think. That's what they're going to do now. So these are just pictures of the same stuff I am talking about. On our campus, you can see it's 93 is the top. So each one of those is a boiler. So we have 4 boilers, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if they would all be running, which we'd never have them all running because we would have there's no need. But our worst case scenario would be 2 boilers running for us to handle the whole campus. This just stacks them all together. So this is 135, remember the whole capacity for the system. That's the worst case scenario day for demand. So the thing that we learned from this, and I think was really good, is, believe it or not, most of the time, as all of us who are leaders of these different areas don't sit and think about what steam capacity and demand is of all of our buildings every day. So we learned a lot about this. What are possibilities? We also have the advantage in Morris that these buildings are really close to each other. So, and when we first talked with Evergreen Energy, and they, said, well, let me take a look at how far apart they are, and then saw the green space between them, versus in St. Paul, they have like 15 feet of utilities that are already buried under everything. So this is really attractive. And so this is something that we're going to potentially continue to think about, but we're close to each other. We have 3 public buildings that are basically land adjacent to each other. So that's what we learned from this, that you could kind of pipe between the differences spaces here. So I should back up and say this. We are still talking about this. This is something that is still out in the space. This would be a couple of years off potentially. So, but it's something that we want to think about, because could there be a good partnership that could exist between these things, and we'd be able to use some local resources. So here are just some of the questions. So how can Stevens County more citizens support these efforts? Is thinking about ways to build clean energy solutions, learning about clean energy solutions, and thinking about how they can connect in community events like this. And so it's wonderful everybody's here. And I think energy conservation is something that we're also thinking about. So that system is the worst case scenario day. But what if we had energy efficiency things put in place? That 43 isn't 43 anymore. It would come down. And I think a lot of the buildings and different things that we're working on now, we're doing that. I will be available for questions, but thank you very much, everybody.